sure, maybe it's just best for me to just get out of it now and, you know, chalk it up to experience. Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack and today I am sitting in the BisMerc. Now, that is probably the only bit of good news that I have to tell you this week, is that the name that you all came up with, that you voted on in the majority of you for this car, was to call it the BisMerc. So the BisMerc it is. Now, the raft of bad news, basically, and first of all, as I have been using it, I have realised that when I drove it last time, I think I was looking at it through rose-tinted spectacles, really. I think I was so relieved that it was driving without any big bumps or knocks, and it was driving fairly well, that I sort of thought it was driving better than it actually was. As I've been driving it some more, other things have come up which are issues. First of all, the engine, it definitely to me feels like it's lacking power low down. That's something I hadn't noticed before, but I think that's definitely the case. I have taken some of the wrap off the car and it looks a lot better. So on these rear 3/4 panels, on the rear screen and on the front right, I have removed it all. Problem was, when I removed the rear screen, I saw why they'd probably done that in the first place, because it is not only cracked, but it is delaminating really badly on the side. So it looks horrible. So it cannot be kept like that. Now, a rear screen isn't something that's going to be cheap to sort out, so that's already adding to my woes. On top of which, that exhaust is massively annoying. I'd mentioned it before, but also the passenger side window doesn't work. The heating is stuck on maximum, so that basically, I guess at this time of year, it could be worse if it wasn't working at all. And the cruise control is also out of action. So far, okay, a few things that have definitely come up that aren't so great. But there is something that I found which was actually completely dangerous. Before we get on to that, let me just explain a bit of background. A week ago now it is, almost a week ago, I decided to put it up on a ramp and have a look at it before I was going to take it to Ollie at PCS, Prestige Car Services, for him to give it a good check over the car. When I had a look at it, I was actually pleasantly surprised, because I thought underneath it actually looked fairly tidy. It really didn't look that bad. There were a few things here and there, a bit of sort of crustiness, but nothing major, nothing structural, so I was pretty pleased. However, just before I lowered it, I noticed the corner of my eye, I picked out a little drop of fluid, and when I looked, I saw that the rear brake lines were so corroded that they were actually leaking. My history of brake lines with Mercs, but this one is properly bad, so bad that it's leaking brake fluid. It looks like that one's really rotten and needs replacing. So that's pretty scary, because I drove this car when I did the driving impression videos last time, and I did say the brakes don't feel quite right, and all that time it was actually leaking fluid from the back because they were so bad. So I had to get those rear brake lines redone before I could even take it to Ollie for him to check it out. So that was already another £220 on top of the purchase price of the car. That same night I also found a screw in the front tyre, so it was just, that was not a good day. In the end though, I managed to get it down to Ollie and get him to take a look at it. The sound didn't work out on the video, so I can't show you the actual video, but I can tell you what he said. He was not impressed. Didn't like the car particularly at all, but also he did find quite a few things that, once again, that I wasn't aware of, and that might change the dynamics of what I'm going to end up doing with this car, because I have a list here. And actually, some of the things I wanted to get to, we didn't even have time to get to, really, because he just went through the main stuff. Now, one of the front ball joints that he saw, I'd seen this as well when I looked underneath it, the cover, the rubber cover has split. And so obviously that would actually normally be an MOT failure in itself. So I'm not sure how this car passed its MOT with that brake leak and that gator like that. But anyway, it has. So anyway, front ball joint, that needs replacing. The brake lines at the front, Ollie had a look at them. He reckons that they've been they're corroded. They don't look corroded, but I think that they've been corroded in the past. He thinks they're a bit too thin, so it would definitely be better to get those changed. He also found at the back that there is a bit of play in the two rear wheels. I don't think that would be an MOT failure at this point in time, but they will have to be done at some point, and apparently that's quite a bit of a pain in the backside to do. Also, the rear caliper as well on one side seems like it's sticking a little bit, so that's another issue. At the front, the two wheel bearings there, they need tightening up, but they can just be tightened, so that's a nice, cheap, easy job. As he looked around the car, Ollie did find some other areas of rust. I mean, the man is unbelievable. He was going around with an ice pick. And anyway, on top of the rear suspension where the shocks mount, there is some surface rust. I think on one side it's slightly worse than the other, but it hasn't gone through yet, so I think that can be treated. We talked about the oil leak, and yes, it is quite possible it's the timing chain cover, but it could be coming from other sources as well. The V-belt itself is very perished, so that's definitely something that needs changing. So again, that's an additional cost. With regards to why it feels like the engine maybe isn't running at full pace, Ollie thinks it's probably an ignition issue. So the first thing to do is look at the distributor. New distributor, probably going to end up costing, I would imagine, around £150, something like that. So again, that's another cost. I'm going to have a look at the one that's there, see what that's like, see if I can improve it at all without having to replace it, but we'll see on that side. The rear exhaust, again, the back box needs to be changed, and I think it's just amazing. We were looking at it, and it's incredible what these guys managed to do, because it is so rusty, the bit that they've cut off and added this sort of, it looks like a homemade cherry bomb to. That actually I had quite a bit of respect for the fact that they managed to weld it onto a piece of metal that was quite as rusty as that. So a few takeaways from this week. First of all, quite thankful really that I didn't drive this more than I did until I found that rear brake leak. Secondly, there are quite a few issues that need to be sorted out on this car, and I just need to weigh up whether it's actually worth doing anything with it or not. I hardly ever make any money on my cars when I sell them, and I don't really mind that, but I can't lose money because that just cuts into the little revenue that I get from YouTube. Now, if we go through this list that I have here, and you know, doing the ball joints is 220, the brake lines is 220, the wheel bearings is 260. The brake caliper is it's going to cost about £100. These are all sort of estimates, £100, £120. The V-belt 100. The wheel bearings at the front about £40. The exhaust and the rear box is going to be about £200. The ignition, so sorting out possibly if I need to get a new distributor, say £150. I haven't even looked at the prices for that. A rear screen, well, I mean, if I was to go through the new route and everything else, I think that my friend Marky, who does windscreen, told me that they're about £500 from Pilkington, so I'm definitely not going to go down that route, plus then fitting as well. So I don't know, put a figure up in the air for a second-hand one plus fitting, again because Mark is a friend, he'll help me out with the fitting, but I'm looking, I would imagine, at £200–300 for that as well. All in all, the total cost of what I need to put into this car to make it semi-decent before I do the paint is a grand total of £1,300. On top of that 1,300, then you have to factor in that rear screen, so conservatively say £300. So I'm really looking at £1,600 before I've even done any paint. I paid £1,160 for this. I then paid another £120, I think, to get it down here. So the car itself already owes me £1,300, plus let's not forget the £230 that I had to pay to do those brake lines. So I'm already £1,500 into the car. I'm looking at another sort of £1,600, so that's going to be £3,000 before I've even painted it. And then in materials and everything else, I mean, the paint, even though a friend is helping me out, it's still going to end up costing me over £1,000 at the very least. That's if I do everything, and it's literally just sort of ready to be sprayed on. So the total bill comes to about, it's possibly about £4,000, and it's just, I'm not sure if it's worth it. I mean, let me know what you guys think, but I don't know really. Is this going to be a £4,000 car by the time it's done? I don't know. I'm not that sure. Maybe it's just best for me to just get out of it now and you know, chalk it up to experience. Anyway, look forward to seeing you for the next one. I think next week I'll decide what to do with the BisMerc. It's a shame because it's a nice solid base, but I don't know if it's just more effort and more money than it makes sense for me to spend at the moment. Thank you, see you soon.